a tentacled creature of unknown origin has shattered more than 70% of the moon, declaring that he will wipe out the world within a year. However, Tadaomi Karasuma, a diligent employee of the Ministry of National Defense, allowed the creature to become the teacher of Class 3E. The students are armed with weapons specially made to harm the creature and are promised a reward of 10 billion yen to anyone who can assassinate him before graduation. So the story begins in Class 3E, where a seemingly bored class awaits the teacher's arrival with trepidation. The teacher entered the schoolyard, and the students prepared to greet him. When he entered the classroom, they greeted him the way only public school students could, by shooting at him. However, the teacher, adept at dodging their attacks with superhuman speed, took attendance while skillfully dodging every shot, pleased to see that his students were not late. This performance surprised the students, who once again felt humiliated. To motivate them, the teacher encouraged them to be unique and unconventional if they wanted to succeed in taking him down. When a student protested that BB guns were ineffective, the professor demonstrated that these weapons, specially designed by the government, were actually capable of harming him. Then he wishes them luck, so they can finish him off before graduation, and tells them that the class is about to start. So he asks them not to use the guns on each other. Later, while the smiling professor is teaching his class, Nagisa, the class leader who, although she looks like a waifu, is a man, sees the moon and begins to remember something. A flashback reveals that a few months ago, the media put society on alert by telling them that a creature had destroyed 70% of the moon in an instant. Days later, the government gathered the students of Class 3E to introduce them to Koro, the creepy creature responsible for the destruction of the moon. One of the government agents explains to them that Koro not only destroyed the moon, but that he plans to destroy the entire Earth the following year if they fail to assassinate him. He further reveals to them that it was Koro who gave them that time frame and asked them to be the Class 3E in charge of trying to take him down. He even asked to be allowed to be the class teacher. The reward for completing the mission is 10 billion yen, as it is literally about saving the world. Returning to the present, Koro-sensei notes that it is lunchtime and announces to his class that he will be traveling to China to buy some tofu, estimating the journey will take less than 10 minutes. Nagisa finds the situation peculiar, reflecting on how Koro-sensei, despite being their assassination target, is an incredible teacher who has significantly boosted their grades and even dedicates time to them after class. The students, a group of so-called losers and outcasts, decide to devise a plan to take him down. They understand that Koro-sensei's face changes color based on his emotions, a valuable clue for crafting an effective strategy with Nagisa at its center. During class, Nagisa stealthily approaches Koro-sensei to ask exam-related questions, concealing a knife behind her back. However, the knife is merely a distraction, allowing Nagisa to launch a surprise kamikaze attack with a grenade hidden in her necklace. This plan, conceived by 3 of Nagisa's peers, involves a grenade filled with special pellets and a small amount of gunpowder designed to harm Koro-sensei while minimizing the risk to Nagisa. However, Koro noticed everything and evaded the attack, but not before protecting Nagisa with his old skin. This infuriated him, so he threatened the students to finish off their family members if they don't stop wasting their time with questionable methods, although he ends up congratulating Nagisa for having the best attempt of the class so far. This makes Nagisa happy, as she finally feels that someone appreciates the group's effort and doesn't look down on them. Days later, while Koro was reading the newspaper in the schoolyard, Shugina and Nagisa try to take him by surprise by throwing a baseball full of special pellets at him. Logically, Koro dodges this as if it were a game and appears from behind the children, congratulating them for their excellent and stealthy plan. But that thanks to his speed, he had enough time even to go and get a baseball glove to take the ball in his hands. So Shugina gets frustrated. As the lesson drew to an early close, Koro informed the class of his imminent journey to New York for a baseball match. In his absence, the Ministry of Defense seized the opportunity to probe the students for any valuable insights. Despite their conviction that defeating someone who could break the sound barrier was a futile endeavor. The following day, during the midday meal, Shugino was astonished by Koro's unexpected return. Not only did Koro return Shugino's ball, but he also praised his throw and inquired about his participation in any team. Shugino confessed that he had once been part of a team, but quit due to his poor pitching, which led to his academic decline and relegation to Class E, barring him from rejoining any team until his grades improved. Meanwhile, Nagisa, observing from the window, approached to investigate the scene, only to be left in awe as she witnessed Koro's tentacles enveloping Shugino in a gentle embrace. Koro tells Shugino that he has noticed the way he imitates a professional player named Arati, but not to keep doing it, as his shoulder muscles are not as strong as Arati's, so he won't be able to be like him. He also shows them that he has gone to the match exclusively to inspect Arati with his tentacles. This bothers Nagisa, as he can see the sadness on Shugino's face, but Koro changes the expression on their faces by mentioning that Shugino has more flexible wrists and elbows than Arati, so he will be able to surpass Arati if he puts his mind to it and trains hard enough. Nagisa sees the happiness on Shugino's face and can't help but go after Koro to ask him why he is such a good teacher, to which he replied bluntly that he became his teacher because of a promise. Plus, he takes his job so seriously that he even went to New York just to use his tentacles on Arati. Days later, Nagisa marveled at Shugino's improved pitching skills and newfound determination, fueled by his dual ambitions of excelling in baseball and defeating Koro. Meanwhile, Karasuma, a government agent, reported to the principal before departing for Class 3E to assume his role as the new physical education instructor. Upon his departure, he noticed the elite academy students' disdain and ridicule towards Class 3E. Realizing that the school's hierarchical structure was designed to foster effort and competitiveness, despite its overt discrimination. Upon his arrival and introduction as the new gym teacher, Karasuma discovered the students were fervently engaged in their attempts to bring down Koro, who eagerly instructed them in the art of assassination. Karasuma was astonished to see the students genuinely happy learning how to assassinate their teacher. Meanwhile, the directors of the elite academy give one of their students confidential information about Koro, as he will be transferred to Class 3E along with all the losers. Karasuma teaches the gym class alongside Koro until he tells her that it's his duty to do it himself and without anyone's help, so Koro has no choice but to go hang out somewhere else. The students admit that it feels good to be taught by a human teacher with physical characteristics like theirs, since Koro wanted to teach them things they were unable to imitate. In addition, Karasuma shows them that he has tremendous combat skills, so the students are enthusiastic to learn. At the end of the class, Nagisa meets Karma, the new transfer student, whom he apparently already knows. Karma approaches Koro-sensei to greet him and is greeted in a friendly manner, but Karma's greeting shatters Koro's tentacles as he had placed anti-Koro material on his hands. Karma then begins to intimidatingly humiliate Koro, which sets his classmates' expectations sky high, so Nagisa explains that Karma was transferred to Class E because of his violent and cynical behavior. During class, the students witness the deep impact of the situation on Koro, who appears like a sorrowful child punished unjustly. Karma submits his exam and starts eating ice cream, catching Koro's attention. Koro is enraged to recognize it as the exclusive ice cream he brought from Italy. Attempting to confiscate it, Koro falls into a trap set by Karma, facing humiliation once more before the entire class. The following day, Koro arrives to find his students deeply upset. He immediately notices a dead octopus on his desk. Realizing it's Karma's doing, Karma declares his intent to break Koro's spirit before killing him, but Koro, moving at supersonic speed, challenges him to try all day. Despite Karma's relentless attempts in every class, Koro not only thwarts each one, but taunts him further. That afternoon, Karma and Nagisa meet outside school, where Nagisa tries to persuade Karma that killing Koro is an impossible feat, especially if he attempts it alone and unaided. A flashback reveals that Karma was very close to one of his teachers, but Koro interrupts his memories by saying that he is eager to continue educating Karma. Upon hearing this, Karma has the most twisted and brilliant idea yet to throw himself off the cliff for Koro to save him. As Karma fell, he began to remember the day he lost the trust and affection he felt for his favorite teacher, as he realized that the teacher didn't really appreciate him but only took advantage of him to further boost his teaching career. However, Karma's attempt is thwarted by Koro, who saves his student without exposing himself to murder. After this, Karma realizes that Koro really cares for his students, since he risked slightly to be killed by him in order to save him. Days later, Koro goes to the store to buy some things, and on his way out, he finds some thugs harassing a waifu. Koro doesn't hesitate to help her and puts the men in their place, for which the waifu thanks her with much emotion and asks her if she knows how to get to Class 3E. Later, Karasuma introduces the waifu before the entire class, announcing her as the new foreign language teacher. The students are left in awe, not only by her beauty, but also by her apparent obsession with Koro. Nagisa quickly discerns a new vulnerability in Koro. Around the waifu, he behaves as humanly as anyone else. However, Nagisa suspects there's more to this waifu than meets the eye. These suspicions are confirmed when Karasuma is shocked to meet the renowned S-class assassin, Irina Jelovic, who fluently speaks over 12 languages and excels in infiltrating high-risk missions. Bursting into the schoolyard, Irina seduces Koro, asking him to fetch her coffee from Vietnam. Ever obliging, Koro departs immediately. The students then learn Irina's true identity as she reveals her lack of intention to teach them anything. Moreover, she quickly demonstrates her single-minded focus on her mission, showing no interest in fulfilling her role as a teacher. In fact, he kisses Nagisa in front of everyone and explains that he will do the same to those who have information about Koro. She then introduces her right-hand men, who are none other than the alleged stalkers from the beginning. During class, Irina literally only thinks about how to kill Koro and recalls the information Nagisa gave her about Koro, mainly the fact that Koro has an incredible sense of smell despite having no nose. The students demand attention from their teacher, but the teacher detracts them, causing anger among the youngsters. During the afternoon, the students see Koro and Irina leave the courtyard to go to the storage room, so they take the opportunity to complain about her to Karasuma. However, Karasuma tells them that she was chosen by the government thanks to her great ability. All this is explained while Irina seduces Koro very provocatively to make him slowly fall into a trap. Trying to take him by surprise, Irina's men rain a hail of bullets on Koro. But although the attack seemed to be a success, they didn't even manage to muss his hair, and Koro enjoyed humiliating the waifu, just as he does with those who try to assassinate him. The students behold this, and Irina's humiliation deepens. During the lesson, she scorns them, declaring she cares not for their grades, for if they dwell in Class 3E, it is because they are not, but failures. In response, the students jeer and hurl objects at her, hoping to drive her away. Witnessing this, Karasuma endeavors to make Irina reflect. He escorts her to the schoolyard, where she witnesses Koro's unwavering dedication, as he meticulously crafts exams tailored to each student's strengths and weaknesses, empowering them. He also shows her the joy and progress the students experience in gym class, growing ever stronger in their skills. Moved by this, Irina reflects and, the next day, delivers her best in teaching. Apologizing to her students, she pledges to teach them not only English, but the art of learning any language through seduction, leaving the students astonished. A few days later, the students of Class 3E learn to extract and distill colors with Koro-sensei, but Okuda surprises the entire class by asking their teacher to please consume the poisons she prepared with dedication. Against all the students' odds, Koro agrees and takes each of the poisons without suffering severe consequences. To encourage the shy girl, Koro asks her to stay after class to make a poison that can kill him, and she takes advantage of the class to explain that it is not easy for her to socialize with others, let alone kill someone. So Koro gives her an exact recipe to make a deadly poison for him. The next day, Okuda comes to class with great enthusiasm and explains to his classmates everything that happened the day before. Okuda gives the concoction to his teacher, and he takes it without any problems. But contrary to what everyone expected, Koro acquires a new power and is able to change his state. He then tells Okuda that it is her destiny to become an amazing scientist. But to achieve this, she must master the art of expressing herself with eloquence and beware of those who could take advantage of her innocence and kindness. A few days later, the students of Class 3E left school to begin a long trip through the forest. An animation explains that Class 3E is located far away from the city to avoid affecting the academic performance of the best students. Once a month, they must descend the mountain, facing countless challenges, to reach an elite academy and attend a conference where they are scorned. It was revealed that people thrive when they are looked down upon by others. Despite all their efforts to bring down Class 3E, they remained undeterred. On the contrary, they were passionate about their journey. The joy and camaraderie in Class 3E makes the elite students uncomfortable and jealous because everyone in Class 3E, including the teachers, is strangely attractive. At the end of the assembly, a group of students try to bully Nagisa, but Nagisa leaves them in check by responding to them in an intimidating manner. Meanwhile, an academy manager watches from above in disgust, as he is not pleased that his most promising students are feeling envious of a group of failures. Upon returning to school, Koro multiplies his teaching efforts 1,000-fold, moving at such an incredible speed that he seems to be able to have a clone to teach each of his students one-on-one. At the end of class, Koro returns to the teacher's lounge and meets Gakuho Asuno, the academy's principal. Karasuma introduces the principal with much respect, but the principal immediately begins to intimidate Koro by explaining that he does not intend to dissolve the E-class, since with that structure, he ensures that the students are highly effective. So he tries to explain his point of view with an analogy about ants. Before departing, he explicitly tells Koro that he wants the E-class to continue to have dismal grades, for in order for 95% of the students to be elite, it is necessary for 5% to be mediocre and despised. The next day, Koro doubles his efforts, teaching at an absurd speed until he collapses from exhaustion. When he overhears a student remark that it is futile to try so hard for a group of losers, he becomes enraged and summons everyone to the courtyard. There, he asks Irina and Kurasuma to explain if their work always goes as planned. His aim is to make the students realize they cannot rely solely on the idea of earning 10 million yen for killing him and then doing nothing, as that plan could fail and leave them without a backup. Furthermore, he threatens to quit teaching if they cannot make it into the top 50, so they will be promoted and silence all those who underestimated them. The next day, the students of Class E make their best efforts during the exams, but these are really difficult as they are designed to fail, so they get demotivated and start to give up little by little. However, they remember Koro's teachings, and little by little, they manage to pass each of the exercises with great determination. But at the end of the exam, a very difficult question puzzles them. The next day, Kurasuma calls the Ministry of Education to file a complaint, since the exam was completely different from what had been announced. But they mockingly explain to him that everyone knew about it except them, since the director himself prepared the exams. Koro is depressed by this, but Karma approaches him and presents him with his exam, showing him that despite everything, he passed. He then encourages Koro and the whole class to shut the others' mouths. Days later, the E-class students are informed that they will have a school trip, so they start making groups. During gym class, Karasuma explains to them that they will have to take advantage of the trip to assassinate Koro, as some elite snipers will also be helping. Nagisa makes a group with Karma, Okuda, Shugino, Kano, and Kanzaki, a waifu who is very popular in the class. Koro arrives on the scene at that time and hands them each some guides he wrote himself about all kinds of information needed for a school trip. Upon the Lolas' journey, they momentarily step aside to purchase snacks on the train and encounter a bully who snatches the itinerary that had slipped from Kanzaki's backpack. Later, as they rest at the inn rented by the academy, Kanzaki realizes the loss of his itinerary, leaving them no choice but to rely on the guidebooks crafted by Koro. As they explore, the group tours all of Kyoto, meticulously following the itinerary and observing every tourist spot that could aid them in learning more about assassinations. However, their path is blocked by a band of thugs in an alley, and Karma seizes the opportunity to thrash some of them. Yet, he cannot fend off all, and the thugs end up kidnapping Kanzaki and Kayano. In the aftermath, the youngsters find that Koro had prepared a list of steps to follow in such an event, prompting them to embark on a rescue mission. Meanwhile, the thugs extort money from the waitress, and one thug recognizes Kanzaki as someone he had previously attempted to kidnap, deeming her attractive. Kanzaki explains that she never aspired to appear as someone from high society, focusing so intently on her disguise that her grades suffered, resulting in her transfer to E-class. The bullies, slightly moved by her tale, proposed that she join them to expose the high society elite as scum. At that moment, the rest of the group arrives using Koro's guidebook, as it said that a not-so-large group would not mobilize too far from the kidnapping location. As if Koro's guide was not enough, he himself arrives just in time to teach the thugs a lesson, and not only because of the beating he gave them, but also because he teaches them that what others say about them is their opinion and not reality, so they should not spend their lives holding grudges against others and trying to get even. After this, the group goes on their way again as if nothing had happened. Meanwhile, Karasuma meets with an elite sniper named Red Eye to brief him about the mission. The E-class students are communicating with the sniper, so they devise a plan to take out Koro during the ride. Obviously, the first of the attempts fails, and the sniper realizes Koro's enormous skills. This is repeated over and over again throughout the day, as Koro literally survives every single attempt as if it were child's play. Because of this, the sniper leaves the mission, but during the night, he personally meets Koro, who invites him to dinner and thanks him for making his students improve as assassins as they carried out great intelligence work to give Red Eye the best possible scenario. On the final day of the journey, the students gather in their rooms, engaging in typical teenage conversations. The boys create a tier list of beautiful girls, and we discover the various romantic possibilities, particularly between Nagisa and Kayano. Unbeknownst to them, Koro spies on their conversations, stealing the information as she delights in gossip. She does the same with the girls, who listen attentively to Arena's tales, leading to a chaotic chase as they all try to kill her. Koro seeks refuge next to Karasuma, who humorously asks if she had an affair. In that moment, Koro hints that she was once human, but Karasuma decides not to pry further and stops asking questions. Upon returning from the trip, the students learn they will be joined by a new classmate. Their excitement grows when they see a picture of her, but upon entering the class, they realize she is an artificial intelligence. After being introduced in front of everyone, the class begins normally. Just a few moments later, the artificial intelligence begins to attack Koro with a huge arsenal of weapons, which causes chaos in the classroom and leaves everyone with their mouths open, since one of her attacks managed to hit. As the days go by, this happens again and again, so the students get fed up with it and decide to take matters into their own hands. The artificial intelligence believes that it was Koro who tied up his body so that he could not use his weapons, but the students confess that it was them, since it is their fault that they cannot learn anything in class, in addition to having to clean up the mess that remains after each attack. When the moon ascended and cloaked the land in its silvery embrace, the artificial intelligence beseeched the central office for aid, knowing it could not surmount the challenge alone. Yet, Koro emerged from the shadows, deftly unwinding the bandages that bound the AI's form, unwilling to see his students confined by limitations. Throughout the night, he toiled, enhancing the AI's hardware and software, giving her the ability to engage and bond with her peers. Come dawn, all stood agape, witnessing the AI's transformation from a mere mechanical entity into a splendid 2D waifu residing within an LCD realm. The newfound AI, christened Ritsu, won their hearts with her warmth and assistance, leaving them in awe of Koro's vast prowess. However, as darkness fell once more, the AI's creators descended upon the school, intent on stripping away Koro's improvements, determined to prevent their creation from becoming a waifu. The next morning, everyone is saddened to see that Ritsu is back to his old normal, as he's preparing a super attack against Koro. But surprisingly, he proves that it was all a hoax, and that he managed to keep his real personality by hiding the software enhancements in a file that his creators did not check. Days later, Nagisa and Karma mention a movie they are fans of, so Koro doesn't hesitate to invite them to see it at its premiere. Ritsu also joins the trip, and Koro takes them for a ride, flying at an absurd speed, while explaining everything she is doing to prevent their bodies from suffering the consequences of being exposed to such great pressure. When they arrive at the movie theater, Koro tells them that they can use his tentacles to translate the words they find difficult. As the cinematic journey concluded, everyone returned to Japan, marveling at the absurdity of their Hawaiian escapade solely to watch a movie. Koro bid farewell to his students, heading off in another direction, oblivious to the two mysterious figures lurking in the shadows. Meanwhile, the headmaster informed Karasuma of an impending arrival, a new student set to join their ranks soon. In class, Koro revealed to the students that a new companion would be joining them. Only Ritsu had foreknowledge of this, sharing that this student was initially meant to assist her in defeating Koro, though his strength rendered such aid unnecessary. The students' curiosity piqued. They pondered whether this newcomer truly possessed such formidable power. Suddenly, the classroom door swung open, and a white-clad ninja stepped in, leaving everyone speechless. The man introduced himself as Shiro, declaring that he was the tutor of the new student. After this, an unhinged-looking brat enters the classroom, breaking the wall and leaving everyone full of questions since, despite the fact that it is raining outside, Itona is not even a little bit wet. Without a second thought, the young man goes to the front of the class and tells Koro that he will finish him off because he is his older brother, leaving everyone with their mouths agape. For the rest of the afternoon, everyone tries to draw conclusions about this, since obviously they don't have any similar physical appearance, although they both eat the same snacks and read the same magazines. At the end of class, Itona and Shiro set up a ring using the desks, and the fight is announced in front of all the students with only one law. Whoever sets foot outside must be killed. As soon as the fight begins, Itona cuts off one of Koro's tentacles and leaves everyone open-mouthed by revealing that he has a head full of tentacles. This makes Koro furious, as it reminds him of something we don't know yet. As the battle raged on, Shiro bellowed to all who would hear that he and Itona had meticulously studied every one of Koro's vulnerabilities. Koro seemed overwhelmed, for Itona's prowess appeared vastly superior, and Shiro's ultraviolet light blinded Koro, giving Itona an edge. As Koro lost tentacle after tentacle, the sorrow in his students' eyes grew, for they couldn't bear the thought of an outsider defeating their teacher. Sensing their despair, Koro unleashed a lightning-quick maneuver, enveloping Itona in his skin and hurling him out, thus concluding the fight. Enraged, Itona attempted to wreak havoc in the hall, but Shiro subdued him with a single strike and spirited him away. That evening, the students implored Karasuma to intensify their training. Days later, Class E received an invitation to a sports tournament at the academy, designed solely to humiliate them. Koro, however, took the challenge to heart, especially with Shujino, ready for the baseball game. When the day arrives, the Elite Academy's quasi-professional team prepares to mop the floor with Class E, but their plans are thwarted bit by bit, as Class E plays strategically due to the vast physical differences between one team and the other. In addition, it is revealed that Koro himself was the one who trained the youngsters by throwing them balls at a high speed so that they could bat smoothly on game day. Seeing the humiliation that the academy is suffering, the director approaches to ask the coach to leave the place. From now on, the director is who takes the reins of the team and manages to reorganize them by motivating them and making them believe that they can crush the failures of the E-class. Because of this, Koro decides to move his last piece and asks Karma to intimidate Shindo, the team's star hitter. Thanks to this strategy, Shugino manages to break through Shindo's defense using a fastball, and Class E wins the match, while Koro wins the coach's duel. Days later, Karasuma commenced training the students with renewed vigor, honoring their request for more rigorous preparation. During an intense session, Nagisa surprised Karasuma, who, reacting with excessive force, apologized profusely upon realizing Nagisa's extraordinary potential for stealth. Despite Karasuma's stoic demeanor, the students held deep affection for him, wishing he could show warmth as Koro did. Suddenly, a cheerful new teacher arrived, announcing that the government had enlisted him to accelerate their training. Karasuma welcomed him and agreed to share his training hours. Takioko, the new instructor, quickly endeared himself to the students by organizing a pre-class picnic, leaving them eager for their first training session with him. Meanwhile, Karasuma looks up Takayoko's file. As he met him in the army, although he doesn't remember much about him, he sees that he is an instructor who is apparently gentle with his students, but is actually a sadistic exploiter. Takayoko presents the new itinerary to the students and leaves them open-mouthed, as he literally wants to have 10 hours of physical education per day. One of the students complains, and Takayoko knees him hard to discipline him. Then he gives Kenzaki a hard punch in the face and sows fear among everyone. Obviously, Koro doesn't stand idly by and tells him that she doesn't approve of that teaching method. The same happens with Karasuma, who intervenes before Takayoko hits one of the students again. Tired of the interruptions, Takayoko asks Karasuma to choose one of the students to face him in a real fight, but he must do so while wielding a knife. Karasuma doesn't think twice and chooses Nagisa, showing him total confidence. With his master's confidence, Nagisa approaches Takayoko without a shred of fear and manages to leave him on the knife's edge as if he were a professional assassin. Takayoko flew into a rage after being humiliated, but when Karasuma put him in his place with a powerful punch, the principal arrived and promptly fired him. To relieve stress, Koro conjures up a swimming pool outside the school, giving her students a fun day of rest. In this episode, two important revelations come to light. First, all doubts about Nagisa's masculinity have been convincingly cleared up. Second, the students discover that water is Koro's weakness. This discovery made Terasaka angry. She did not understand how the students could be so close to Koro. Filled with hatred, he treats everyone poorly and plays a prank by exploding insecticide in the classroom before rushing off. That night, he pours a strange liquid into the river, revealing his collaboration with Shira and Itona to take down Koro. It is further revealed that the pesticide is just a chemical designed to remove Koro's mucus. The next day, the three carry out their plan by inviting Koro and the whole class to the pool again. Terasaka pulls the trigger, but unknowingly sets off an explosive mine that Shiro had placed, and all his classmates start running downstream. Terasaka realized that Shiro has no scruples when it comes to endangering others in order to kill Koro, as he did all this so that Koro would run to save his students. Terasaka feels cheated and is very upset, so with Karma's help, he carries out his revenge and manages to defeat Itona using the same weak points they used on Koro. Weeks later, Koro once again strives to teach his students as the final exams are approaching. To motivate them, he makes a bet with them that consists of cutting off a tentacle to slow them down, but on the condition that they get the best grades. Meanwhile, the principal meets with Karasuma and Irina again to explain that he does not want to see the E students outperform the other students. One fateful day, Shugino receives a call from his baseball rival, Shindo, who warns him that the academy's top 5 students are scheming against Class E. Gakushu Asano, the principal's son, stands as the academy's most popular and intelligent student, president of the student council, and holder of the highest grades in the country. He rallies his peers to seize the top 50 spots in the final exams, aiming to prevent any Class E student from transferring. This spurs Class E to strive even harder, determined to usurp those coveted positions from the arrogant a class. Gakushu cunningly confronts his father, seeking to pry out the secret he is concealing in Class E, hinting at Koro. The principal, impressed by his son's acumen, reminds him that there is still much for him to learn. In the afternoon, Nagisa and the rest use the academy library to study, but the mindless, a class shows up and starts bullying them in a humiliating way. Class E literally shows them that they are nothing but inept, and they put into practice everything they learned from Karasuma to scare them. Meanwhile, Gakushu literally draws up a betting contract between Class A and Class E, detailing that whoever gets the best grades will have the right to dominate the other. In the meantime, the headmaster arranges a god-level exam. When the day arrives, the E-class students arrive at the academy to take the final exams. Symbolically, the students feel during the exam that they are gladiators facing a giant monster in a coliseum. Class A students look confident in the fight, but gradually begin to become demoralized and fail, while Class E students answer the questions without much trouble. The following week, Koro receives the test scores and begins to dictate the grades one by one. Amidst astonishment, many students achieve the highest honors, securing the top spot. Class E embraced the challenge, while Class A despaired to the point of wanting to leap from a cliff. The one anticipated to excel most was Karma, known for his previous academic triumphs. Yet, this time, overconfident in his prowess, he neglected his studies. Koro relentlessly taunted him, aiming to ignite Karma's fury and dedication to his studies, mirroring the principal's tactics with his son, Gakushu. The following day, Koro informed his students they could fulfill their part of the agreement. However, Terasaka interjected, claiming his right to sever a tentacle for excelling in home. Koro admired Terasaka's clever exploitation of the bet, as the term specified only the academy's main subjects, thus validating Terasaka's claim. In the afternoon, Class E meets with the class for the monthly assembly, and they use the moment to ask them to fulfill their part of the deal, so Class A has no choice but to agree to a request from Class E without the right to claim anything. Thus, Class E receives the benefit of enjoying a summer vacation at a 5-star resort sponsored by the school. Before leaving, the E-class students meet Lovro, a prestigious professional assassin who will spend the day teaching them, as he is even Arena's teacher. After working on the strengths of each student, Lovro meets Nagisa and realizes that the boy has a gigantic potential to kill, so he tells him about Shinigami, the best assassin in the world. He also teaches him an infallible technique that Shinigami himself developed. Upon a few sunlit days, the youth embarked on their vacation aboard a splendid 5-star cruise ship. Reaching the idyllic island, they spent the day amusing Koro, all the while making final preparations for his ultimate execution. After a day of merriment, Koro was lured by his students to a lavish floating platform. To set their deadly scheme in motion, the students forced Koro to endure an hour-long film revealing their deepest, most embarrassing secrets. Unbeknownst to him, the platform slowly filled with water, causing Koro's tentacles to absorb a significant amount of liquid, which greatly diminished his speed. At that crucial moment, they demanded he honor his promise to let them shoot him. Thus, they not only drenched him, but also severed his tentacles, preventing regeneration for a time. With but a minute to eliminate their sensei, the students executed an impressive plan, leaving Koro ensnared and vulnerable at last. The plan seemed to work perfectly, and the youngsters celebrated their victory, although they saw that Koro used a strange technique and locked himself in an indestructible crystal sphere that they could not destroy in any way. He also explains to them that he will not be able to move for a day until his body is fully regenerated. Obviously, he congratulates his students for getting him to use his final survival technique. The students are saddened and go to the buffet to let off steam, but the tiredness that seemed to be sadness begins to fade, and most of the class begins to collapse with fever. Karasuma receives a phone call, and a mysterious voice tells him that he has poisoned the students and that he will only give the antidote if they give him Koro. Karasuma tries to get information from the government, but quickly realizes that the callers are billionaire criminals and not even the police can interfere. Before despair took hold of everyone, Koro devised a plan for Karma, Nagisa, and Kayano to infiltrate the hotel and steal the antidote with Ritsu's help. The unpoisoned students joined the team to ascend the mountain under Karasuma's orders. As they climbed, Ritsu displayed the hotel's floor plan to Karasuma, highlighting each guard post. They infiltrated easily, thanks to Arena's enchanting skills, which mesmerized the guards and allowed the group to reach the second floor. To remain inconspicuous, the boys pretended to be the children of eccentric millionaires who often roamed the hotel. While wandering, they were intercepted by a criminal, and one student recognized him as the man who delivered the drinks earlier, realizing he was one of the assassins. Karasuma subdued the killer with a kick, but was poisoned in the process and could no longer fight. As they go up to a new floor, they encounter a new suspect in a hallway. This one intimidates the young men from the first moment due to the tenebrous aura he emanates. Plus, he evidently has beastly strength in his hands. However, Karma boldly approaches him and prepares to confront him. The fight starts immediately and is super close, as Karma doesn't possess enough strength to fight with such a powerful opponent, but he is able to dodge his attacks. However, he manages to use one of the sprays he took from the previous assassin to win and leave everyone open-mouthed. The young men reach one of the top floors and must take care of a group of bodyguards to reach their target, and after using a vile strategy, they manage to knock them out and take away their weapons to enter the room. Upon entering, they encounter a deranged man who is relentless with his gun, but Koro uses a brilliant plan to get his students to confuse the twisted killer, and after a long while, the two most skilled marksmen in the class manage to disarm the enemy, and the rest of the group immobilizes him. Once and for all, the group managed to infiltrate the office of the boss and final enemy. When they were about to finish him off stealthily, he let them know he was expecting them and revealed that he was Takaoko, who had been fired from the school. Takaoko had filled the place with explosives and threatened to demolish it if they didn't follow him. The group followed Takaoko to the helipad, where he expressed his hatred for them due to the humiliation he suffered at school. He particularly wanted revenge on Nagisa, who had defeated him, turning him into a mockery in the army and forcing him to leave his military career. At the helipad, Takaoko invited Nagisa to a one-on-one fight. Nagisa tried to reason with the deranged Takaoko, who then offered to give Nagisa the antidote if he apologized on his knees and humbled himself. Nagisa, not hesitating, obeyed. However, Takaoko just laughed and destroyed the antidotes with an explosive. Enraged, Nagisa warned Takaoko that he would not hesitate to finish him off. Terasaka observes all this and doesn't hesitate to throw the electric baton at Nagisa so that his friend doesn't have to end anyone's life. But Nagisa's fury is so great that he ends up placing the electric baton on his belt and decides to fight with the knife. Logically, Nagisa is no match in any way for Takaoko, and the twisted military man uses the young man as if he were a training bag, as there is an abysmal physical difference. However, Nagisa remembers the technique Lovero taught him and realizes that this is the right time to use it, as it was created by the Shinigami himself and is useful for fights at a disadvantage. Nagisa manages to confuse Takaoko by releasing his knife in the air and attacking at full speed with the staff. So Takaoko is defeated, and Nagisa's companions celebrate their victory. After this, the three assassins they defeated earlier appear and reveal that the poison they used is not deadly, as they did not agree with Takaoko's devious plan and did not want to tarnish their reputation by murdering a couple of innocent teenagers, so the antidote is no longer needed, and the students will recover without any problems. The following day, all the students returned to their usual selves. Even Koro, having fully recovered, was eager to make the most of the final day of their school trip. Following her advice, they delighted in the beach, leading to an emotional season finale between Koro and Nagisa.